Welcome to Soccer Morning on NASN. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
Welcome to Soccer Morning, Friday edition. Jason Davis with you. Excited to be here. Ready for the weekend. It's a doozy coming up, guys. It's a doozy. Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. We are starting off here. Big show today. Your show today. Christian Hinez will join us in a couple minutes to talk about Sunderland and the Great Escape and where Josie Altidore might be going this summer or not going. So we'll talk to Christian about that. But otherwise, this is a Friday edition of the program that is wide open for anything you want to talk about. I've got a rundown. I've got stuff we can cover. Sepp Blatter's going to run for FIFA president again. I know you're excited about that. We've got Eddie Johnson saying some slightly disrespectful things to teammates or saying slightly disrespectful things about teammates in the press and then apologizing for it, sort of. We obviously have a big weekend of games, both in MLS and, of course, Championship Sunday in the Premier League. NBC Sports blowing out the last weekend of the season, last day of the season in the Premier League. Games on MSNBC, Bravo, Sci-Fi, Esquire, E, Oxygen, Telemundo, Mundos. All over the place. USA. Soccer on USA. So we have that to look forward to. We've got, what else is on my list here? I'm looking, again, this is sort of a Friday. We're going to throw this out there. There's an MLS trade last night we can talk about. No big names involved. But you got Luke Moore going to TFC from Chivas, Gale Basamonde going to Colorado from TFC, Marvin Chavez going to Chivas from Colorado, Ryan Finley going to Chivas from Columbus. Those are all sort of all mixed together. Big batch of trades. Any of those stick out? Anybody want to talk about those? The phone lines are open, 347-756-6276. I figure we call this a pickup show, like a pickup game. Just show up, bring yourself, show up, put what you got on the field, and we'll talk about it. Now, there's a couple of suggestions for topics today. We are not going to do any. What if there was a soccer draft? What if you were picking players in a soccer draft? Who would be your number one overall pick? Who would be the guy that would fall like Johnny Football? We're not doing that. We're not doing that except for me doing that weird voice and making a joke out of it. Yeah, Trevor's not gonna help the situation by tweeting, "Who's the Johnny Manziel of soccer?" Hot take. We're not gonna do that. All right. But we'll take all of your topics, what you're looking forward to most. I've got Jerome Valke in the news making comments that essentially say, hey, soccer fans headed to Brazil, be careful, watch out. Yeah, you might not have the best time. You might go to Brazil and not have the best time, so be careful. And I'm curious, and I know most of the people who are headed to Brazil from the United States, certainly the U.S. national team fans are part of, probably part of the American Outlaws trip, maybe going on your own. I'd be curious to know, and even if you're not a USA fan, States to go to Brazil, what is your expectations for Brazil? I'm sure you got all your stuff lined up logistically, but it was interesting to see Valka sort of say, hey, this World Cup is not like that World Cup in Germany when you could show up and crash on a park bench or sleep in your car or find a campsite somewhere. This isn't that World Cup, so you better be careful out there. He talks about the number of problems. You cannot sleep on the beach, firstly, because it's the winter. Thanks, Jerome. Make sure you organize your accommodation. You cannot just arrive with a backpack and start walking. There are no trains. You cannot drive from one venue to another. Don't just turn up thinking it is in Germany, that it's easy to move around the country. In Germany, you could sleep in your car. You can't do that in Brazil. No, really? You think? No? No sleeping in the car in Brazil. And look, the closer we get, and I imagine for those of us who aren't going, those of us who are staying home and watching from the comfort of our televisions, and I've already had one person on Twitter tell me, yeah, my wife was in Sao Paulo last year, and we decided not to go because of her experience. It was that bad. Now, I'm sure that's not everybody, and not everybody will be scared off. I think most people will have a fine experience. Most people will have a relatively comfortable, fine experience. But there's going to be some problems. Some things are going to happen. Some fans will have a bad time in Brazil. That's going to happen. And again, we get closer and closer and closer, and it's going to be fine for us sitting at home watching on television. And ESPN is going to blow the doors off the production. But if you're going, you have to worry about things like the airports are not capable of handling the traffic. The flights are going to be a disaster. There's no trains. Public transportation is a problem. The stadiums are only there's like a quarter of the stadiums not done, and it's 30-something days, 35 days until the World Cup. A quarter of the stadiums are not done. So maybe you have your tickets. Maybe you have your plane itinerary done. Maybe you have your lodging set up. That doesn't mean you're completely comfortable. Just saying. All right. Today, again, Christian Hanej to talk about Sunderland and their Great Escape. Magnificent. I guess we have to go with Great Escape, right? That's the cliche now. Anytime a club looks like they're going to be relegated and scrapes together some points and manages to stay up, that's a great escape. Can we come up with something else, maybe? I don't know. We are on Twitter at Soccer Morning. I've been accused of yellow journalism. Which one is it? What thing am I talking about that's yellow journalism? The Brazil thing? Again, I'm not saying it's going to be a disaster. I'm asking if fans are afraid of it. Our fans have fears. If fans are headed there with trepidation. That's what I'm not saying that Brazil is going to eat them alive. I'm not saying Brazil is going to be mean to them. Sure, 99% of the people are going to have a good time. You're going to get into the stadium. You're going to watch the games. You're going to party. Whatever business you want to get into in Brazil, that's your business, first of all. I'm pretty sure that this is a what happens in Brazil stays in Brazil situation for most of these fans, right? Like, I don't think you'd go to Brazil, come back, and really talk about what you did down there. That's probably dangerous territory for a lot of people. All right. Let's take a break. When we come back, Kristen Hanej will join us, covers Sunderland, among other things, and we'll talk about the Black Cats staying up for another season in the Premier League and the future for Josie Altidore. That's what we care about here in the USA. Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV, soccermorning.com. Support the show. Go do that. See you in a minute.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
Back on Soccer Morning, enjoy now via transatlantic telephone. Thank you for laying those cables, whoever did that. Christian Henez, talk a little bit about Sunderland escaping the drop. It is a stunning turnaround for the Black Cats. Christian, how are you, sir?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I am well as well. You can follow Christian on Twitter, KHENEAGE. All right. So I sort of addressed this yesterday, Christian. I said, I'm not sure how much credit Gus Poyet really deserves for this, because I feel like he just threw a bunch of stuff up against the wall and some of it happened to stick.
I can certainly see why that's the rationale. Look, there was a moment, though, the other evening when they played West Bromwich Albion. I think it was Sebastian Larsson fired the ball and it hit Stefan Sessegnon on the backside and landed at the feet of a Sunderland teammate. And I thought, you know what? There's the change in a microcosm. It's that little bit of luck that maybe, 3 months ago, they hit Sessegnon's backside, it goes to Anishibi, and they can see a goal from that. The change has been monumental. He said himself, I need a miracle. There was no two ways about it, and he was completely right in saying that. And I think it is hard to essentially quantify that change, but I think luck has played a large part in it.
He used the word miracle several times after the match that secured safety, and that's probably why I'm getting the sense, because again, I think it's unfair to say he didn't do something. Of course he did. He's the manager. He had a role in it. But the way that he talks about it makes it seem like even he doesn't know exactly what he did that worked.
Well, I think you have to look at it this way. I mean, Connor Wickham, I think, has 5 goals in 3 games. Now, if you predicted that Connor Wickham would be doing that come the end of the season,
right,
then you're clearly a very rich man as well. Because, again, he started the season terribly. Di Canio, dubbed him a playboy. Said that he used to complain when it rained, and then he used to look around the training ground not really knowing, where he was almost. And even Niall Quinn said just the other week, when he first arrived, he was last one into training and he was first one out. So his commitment's completely been questioned when he's at Sunderland. Yet for some reason, I think it's probably the loan spells at Leeds and Sheffield Wednesday, they've picked him up, they've kind of built him up, and now he believes he can be the striker that he was expected to be as a 16-year-old. And it's that kind of surprise, I think, the fact that players like Sebastian Larsson are doing scoop passes into the penalty box for Fabio Barini. There's so many things change, and I think a lot of them are intangible. They're not necessarily things you can define in a tactical sense.
It's interesting to think about the season as a whole, because it really doesn't matter how good Sunderland actually is, and obviously pinning these things down is always difficult. I mean, you are your place in the table. That's the only thing that matters. And yet you wonder if Sunderland was a decent team playing poorly before the season started and through most of the season, or if they are a bad team overachieving down the stretch.
Well, I think, look, they've struggled against the lesser sides all season. I mean, they've only got 5 home wins this entire season, which is, I think it's actually the joint worst, along with Fulham, who obviously were relegated. And the fact that they've been unable to break down those teams around them for most of the season really does tell the story. The wins against Cardiff and West Brom were almost a signal that things were changed. I think personally they're a team that has played good football, that tries to play good football, but there was essentially a transitional period. That seems to have been the theme for the majority of the Premier League season, be it Man United or at Sunderland.
I think we might have finally lost Christian. Are you there? All right. So those transatlantic phone lines have let us down. Maybe Christian will give us a we can't have him give us a call back, because that would cost him an absolute fortune. I suppose. Let me throw this over to Trevor. I suppose we could take a break right now and try to get him back. We certainly have to talk about Josie Altidore. All right. Let's go. You want me to just call him back right now? All right. Let's do that. Let's go ahead and call him back. You guys get to hear the whole process of not that it's anything special. It's a ringing phone. Let's see if the phone rings there.
Hello?
There you are. Okay. So we have the connection back. All right. I'm not even sure where we were when we lost you.
Essentially, I was painting Lee Cattermole as the Busquets of the Northeast. He kind of has become that almost. He's a player that I think is very easily painted as a destroyer and a physical player. And I don't think he has a long-term future at Sunderland. But equally, there's been a progression in him. He now plays with more authority on the ball instead of just off it. And you saw that on Monday evening against West Brom. And I think he'll continue to see it for as long as he's at the football club. The interesting question for Sunderland is what happens this summer?
Mm-hmm. And that obviously leads me into what is of paramount concern for American fans, and that's the future of Jozy Altidore. At this point, no one is going to paint his season at Sunderland as anything other than a disaster. We've established that. The question now is whether or not there's a lot of factors here, obviously, Kristen. It's whether or not Sunderland wants to keep him, whether Jozy wants to stay around, and if he does stick it out, and I don't know how the wage bill plays into this. I mean, look, staying up is a big deal for that, but he might be better off somewhere else, and I wonder if he has the awareness to say I need to leave rather than sort of stick it out and be the guy who doesn't give up on the situation.
I think that's why footballers employ agents, is to give them that objectivity, to say, look, Jozy, we have to cut this short, or I think it's in your best interest to move. Whether he does is, again, another convoluted question. From speaking to people close to the club, the thought when they were going down was he was certainly gone, without question. Now, obviously, that's significantly changed, the situation of the football club, at least. I think he could stay for another season, certainly. It's whether he gets those opportunities. I mean, again, he missed a good chance the other evening against West Brom. And it's at that moment, it goes back to what you say. Is it time for Jozy to call it a day and accept that England is not a league for him? I mean, there's no shame in saying that. There are players that have arguably greater reputations that have failed in England. So I wouldn't take it hugely personally. I think for him, he probably does have to look abroad. And equally, Sunderland will be a club of huge change. So if he does decide to stay, they may bring in players that are more conducive to his talent and getting him those chances he needs.
Now, part of this is they paid a hefty fee for him. I mean, this is not an insignificant amount of money that they paid for Jozy Altidore at Sunderland, and I suppose that's part of this as well, because really, what kind of money are you going to recoup on him if you do sell him?
I think honestly, you're lucky if you get half. Half to 3/4, you're going to be lucky, because it's that duality of saying, on the one hand, yes, he's done very well in Holland. He's even done well, I would include the US men's national team, the Bosnia game, just as an example of the potential you're getting with Jozy Altidore. But equally, he's also coming off the back of a very bad season. You look at Newcastle, for example. Luke de Jong has gone from a £12 million striker to a €6 million striker. That's the kind of fee they're talking for him. So I think you do have to almost half it and then add a little bit on to try and be somewhat scientific about it.
I suppose that then we'll have to wait and see. Will his World Cup performance play any role in his Sunderland future?
It certainly could. I mean, the Leon and Jean-Michel Aulas said always ignore tournaments because they're not really a good barometer of how good a player is. But I think certainly if he performs, I mean, again, he's in that group of death, that incredibly difficult group for the US. If he performs in that, though, if he can show some of the things that we know he has in his locker, certainly. I mean, even still, I think, there's been glimmers of things from Jozy this season at Sunderland. The Derby game, now that is a high-pressure situation, to say the least, even more so when you travel to the opposition's end of things, because you're barracked pretty much from when you get 2-3 miles near the stadium till you get 2-3 miles away from it. And I thought he was fantastic that day. His hold-up play, the way he brought other players into the game, we saw a new side to Jozy Altidore. And I think, look, any team that's scouting him, that has been looking at him, knows what player they're getting. Then I would think it would be far too reductionist to just say that he's not going to have any good suitors because he's had a bad season on Wearside. Because let's be honest, everyone, including Stephen Fletcher, a £12 million striker, has had a bad season at Sunderland.
Yeah, I suppose that then the sell job is, we were really bad and everybody suffered, and we only turned it around at the very, very end, and only a couple of guys scored. Connor Wickham came out of nowhere. So don't judge this player we want to sell you simply on that one season.
Exactly. It's all about perception and how you paint it. And that's assuming he stays. In truth, if I was him, I wouldn't be afraid of going because, again, we look at the narrative of this season. They brought in 14 players, and that arguably contributed to a lot of the early season problems. Now, there are 12 potential players that could go. I think 7 out of contract, 5 loanees that potentially have to go back to their clubs. Already, Poyer has said he's talking to guys, and the fact that they secured their safety, at least theoretically, on Monday means he's got this week to talk to those guys to say, I think I'd like you to stay, or your time here is up. And then from there, he builds earlier and earlier. So I think you'll know probably Josie's situation quite early in this summer, even though there is a World Cup to play.
I suppose at this point, there's no notion of suitors or anybody coming in or Sunderland actively shopping him around.
I think they're still rejoicing in the fact that they're in the Premier League, in truth, because, again, Poyer said it was a miracle. I rarely want to kind of concur with that sensationalism, but I have to agree. 6 games to go, and they're bottom of the Premier League. We talk about the famous Wigan Great Escape. They were 19th with 6 games to go. So the scale of this jump, and then you consider it's beating Chelsea, it's beating, albeit a slightly hamstrung Manchester United this season. It's taking a point at City, who it looks like will be Premier League champions. They've done it consistently against the big teams in the kind of crazy way that only Sunderland, who struggle to beat Crystal Palace at home, can do it. It's a truly baffling football club at times.
Now, while I have you, Christian, to sort of shift here to a much bigger English picture, and I hadn't warned you about this, but I imagine you have some opinions on it. Greg Dyke's report yesterday, the FA chairman's report on how to increase the English presence in the Premier League and support English players as they come through the ranks. What do you make of some of his proposals? And I suppose so specifically for most fans, the B team element is the thing that sticks out.
I must confess, I'm not the greatest believer in B teams. I think their success is very niche, it's very narrow, and it's slightly over-publicized. The examples given are Spain, Germany, Holland. Holland very much does it to kind of make up the numbers, really, because it lacks the depth of teams that England has with its 4 divisions. You look at Germany, they're slowly phasing it out. I think Rudi Voller said when they were scrapping Bayer Leverkusen's second team, we realised that our top talents can't manage that leap to the professional squad. And I think that's another one of the problems, is that, yes, it gives them a degree of competitive football, but it's not nearly close enough to bridging that gap. I think far too often, in England at least, we have this habit where we often attack the symptom rather than the problem. And for me, the issue is stockpiling. The fact that clubs at the top of our pyramid are able to cultivate and harbour so many English talents. You look at Man City, without wishing to single them out, Scott Sinclair, Jack Rodwell, there's 2 very promising English talents that just aren't playing football. I think you need to look at that and really find and devise a strategy that stops these clubs just sweeping the players up and making it so almost the spread of players across English football is a lot fairer. I think certainly Germany is a great place to look at in terms of fixing the academy issues and perhaps spreading those players out. But I think just installing B teams, you're also going to cripple the loan market, which in itself helps subsidise a lot of these lower league clubs. You look at clubs in League 2, League 1, I'd be amazed if not all of them have at least at some point 1 or 2 players from higher divisions, because they need to round their squads out. And I think if you take away that opportunity, it's going to make it struggle, because why would City want to send a young player, or a talented young player rather, to a club where they might not get games, they might not play the way they want them to, when they can keep them in their system, train them the way they want, and know they're getting that competitive football which football league clubs can offer and academies can't.
Now, the proposed restriction on the number of non-EU players, what kind of impact do you think that would have? I mean, obviously from an American perspective, I wonder how that would change. I mean, certainly Americans can't go if they don't have an EU passport, but what kind of impact would that have on the Premier League and English football in general? I think Dyke is proposing a limit of 2 non-EU players for Premier League clubs and none below that level.
I think again you're almost attacking the symptom again. You're saying, well, there's too many foreigners, so let's limit the number of foreigners. No, you need to improve the overall standard of your English talent instead of pandering to them and giving lesser players an opportunity. But let's be very brutal here. The reason there's more foreign players is often because they're better. They're better, they're cheaper. All of these other kind of factors, I think, is why they're proliferating themselves in this game. And to limit them is very damaging. I think you're harming a lot of chances. And certainly, as you say, from a US perspective, you look at guys right across, even just at Sunderland, the club we were talking about there, Lyndon Gooch. Now, he's quite lucky because he has an Irish passport, I believe, which would get him through. But there are a number of players, as you say, that will lose that opportunity. And for me, it's not a guarantee that you see a rise in English talent. I think you need to raise the level of the talent, not just the number.
Well, again, I mean, I think it's interesting to obviously because of the laws, you can't restrict EU members, citizens of EU countries, but that doesn't necessarily, as far as I can tell, that wouldn't necessarily impact the number of foreigners, except for a handful of maybe South Americans, Luis Suarez, or potentially African players like Yaya Toure. Outside of those players, you're still having a large contingent from the continent, are you not?
You are, certainly. I think the concern I have is that we're actually becoming a far more diverse league. If you look at Premier League squads, it's not just European players that are kind of coming in now. And you mentioned Luis Suarez. Imagine if you have to make a decision between Luis Suarez and David Teixeira, again, a player who came a little bit later at Groningen, but from Uruguay as well. I just think when you're limiting clubs like that, you're not really benefiting them. Their incentive should be naturally to rear English talent or domestic talent rather, because that's in their interest. I think just by limiting them, you're not really going to improve it. I think certainly if you wanted to maybe limit transfers in the way that we see with Italy or even Russia, who kind of limit starting 11s of, I think you have to have 6 Russian players of around that number. That's a little bit more flexible, I think. But just to say you can't bring, that number in, I think it's too reductionist. It's attacking the symptom.
Yeah, and obviously, English football constantly trying to fix English football. I not having been within that structure or not having lived there, Christian, it's difficult for me to have a direct understanding. But knowing what I know about American soccer, sometimes it seems like the inherent problems in sort of how it organically grew up may not be fixable in a way that is going to be quick enough for anybody's liking. And reports like this, which ask for sweeping change, again, as you said, addressing the symptom and not the actual cause.
Exactly. I think, again, the idea of sweeping change in anything, I think you have to be very careful. Sometimes sweeping change is not needed. Sometimes it's more fine-tuning that's required. And just the title alone, I think, evokes a number of headlines and that sensationalism that we talk about. It's all very nice and well to think, wouldn't it be great if we had the equivalent of Barca B and Real Madrid B and Young Ajax and Bayern Munich 2 or SPI in our league. But again, those are a select few examples that certainly have produced players. I would never be as naive to say it hasn't produced players. But I just think you have to also look at the English structure. Yes. You have to accept the nuance of English football and the landscape that we find ourselves in. I don't think many of them match the countries that use this. Let's
not marginalize lower league football any more than it already is. I mean, I think that's a concern for anybody who has a soft spot for the history of lower league football in England. You take B teams from the biggest clubs in England and you put them. I don't know. Again, it just seems like a bridge too far. Christian Hines joining us.
You have to think of those fans. Sorry, Jason. You have to think of those fans as well. What's the incentive to a Hartlepool United fan for wanting to go and watch Man United B when he can go and watch a game that genuinely feels competitive? I think, as you rightly say, you shouldn't marginalise the lower leagues even further. I think they've suffered enough.
Absolutely. Christian Hines joining us, talking Sunderland, talking English FA proposals. Thank you for your time, as always, Christian. I appreciate the insight. Hopefully that wasn't a siren chasing you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully speak to you soon.
There goes Christian. Good to have him. I'm glad we got through that slight drop there. This leads me to a question on the back of the report from the English FA as to what to do What do we do about all of this English talent that's not getting a chance to play or develop? Look at all these foreigners that are coming in. Now, I'm not sure it's quite that xenophobic of a statement. It's about promoting English players to make them better, to give them a chance. There are a lot of problems with this. There are a lot of problems with the proposed plan. But what it gets me to is if Greg Dyke had his way, if anybody in English football who wants to sort of re-Englandify, well, that's not even a word. Let me try this again. For anybody who wants to make English football more English again, certainly at the top level, and the Premier League is where all the headlines are and all the spotlight is, if that happened, if the English Premier League was less foreign, more English, would it be as exciting for you? Would it be as popular? Would we still have the world looking at the Premier League? Because that's the disconnect, right? This is the thing that troubles English football authorities. This is the thing that troubles people within English football who still care about the three lines. We have the biggest league in the world, the richest, most popular football league in the world, and yet when we go to a World Cup, we're also Rans. We're round of 16 and out. We're maybe a quarterfinalist, maybe. That's the problem. I mean, that I think that frustrates English football. And as we said yesterday, and I apologize for not remembering who called yesterday to bring this up, there's a real argument that England has overachieved on the international level in recent years. They're not supposed to be handed anything, and I'm not sure that they think they should be. But it's not like England has a divine right to be one of the best teams in the world simply because the game originated there. There are a lot of factors that have gone into marginalizing the England national team. Yeah, again, they have the biggest league in the world. They have some of the biggest clubs in the world. They spend the most money. They bring in the most money. Is money what makes talent to throw into an international game and have them go win it? I don't know. 347-756-6276 is the phone number if you want to jump in on any of that. Would a less foreign English Premier League be as interesting? And our friend Auntie on Twitter saying not all European countries are EU countries. Yes, I am aware of that. I'm certainly aware of that. And our friend Dan Dickinson, Gothamist Dan on Twitter, outlined a couple of players, just at Manchester City, players that are non-EU players that would have to be, that obviously City would have to make decisions on, including Edin Dzeko, I believe. Auntie, what's up, man? You're on the air. Hello, Finland. Okay, I can't hear you, Auntie, so you need to call back. I'm not sure what's going on there. Go ahead and give us a call back. 347-756-6276 is the phone number. Jump in, pick up Soccer Show. One Vieira, EPL issue is teams like Manchester City have one English player, sometimes none in their 11. I agree that's okay. It's an issue if you care about the English Premier League being responsible for the success of the English national team, or if you believe your league should be a reflection of your national character. Ask those City fans. When Manchester City wraps up the title this weekend against West Ham, because it's happening, when they do that, go ask those Manchester City fans if they give a crap about there being no English players in their starting 11 or one English player in their starting 11. Go ask them. I'm not sure most of them are going to care. I think most of them will probably say, I'm happy my team won a title. That's it. But what for them, for those people who are club over a country or who care about their club beyond anything else, the idea is to go win things. Does it matter if your team reflects your local character? I mean, that's a romanticism that we add to soccer a lot. This idea of let's get the local kids, turn them into stars, and go win things. That's how football is supposed to work. It's sort of like the notion that college sports is supposed to be actual students from your college. You put together a team and you go win things. That's not how it works anymore, is it? You go out, you range out, you go find a kid from Texas because they got great football players. Auntie, you're on the line. What's up?
Can you hear me now?
I got you. What's up?
Okay, good. I was just listening to your conversation earlier, and I just wanted to point out that not all Europeans are EU players.
Yes, I'm aware of that. I actually mentioned your tweet. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and I actually was just looking. I'm here looking at the City squad, and they have like
7, I think.
Dzeko is from Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Yes.
Kolarov, Serbian.
Mm-hmm.
Nastasic is also Serbian. Jovetic is Montenegrin. And all of the top 5-6 teams have plenty of Europeans that are not eligible.
Right. Well, I mean,
for those EU.
Again, I think the only reason the report says anything about EU players is because that's the law. They're legally bound to do it. I'm sure if Greg Dyke had his way, it would be no English players. I mean, no non-English players on the team. Below the Premier League, no non-English players. But they can't do that because of the labor laws in Europe.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at just like the Chelsea squad, there's like, if that would come in effect, like right now, you would have to drop. You have Samuel Eto'o, Demba Ba, Matic, Nemanja Matic. You have Ramirez, David Luiz, Oscar, John Obi Mikel, and Mohamed Salah, and you would lose plenty of those guys.
Right, and again, I mean,
how do you feel that?
I mean, there would be players to fill the gap. The league would be different. The quality of the league would probably take a hit. Certainly, those top clubs who are more likely to go outside of EU countries for their talent, and again, plenty of Europeans who are non-EU members, then it would certainly change the look of those squads. I don't know, and that's why I'm asking, would the league be less enticing for the average viewer? I mean, certainly I have to ask about an American perspective because that's where I am and that's where most of our listeners are, but you can give me your perspective as well. Would the Premier League be less interesting to you if teams were limited to 2 non-EU players?
I would not be willing to pay the same amount for the TV package that includes EPL as I wouldn't pay for it as much as I do now.
I think that's
definitely not.
Because here's the problem. England, and this is obviously through the creation of the Premier League and the focus on marketing their sport and marketing their league and going around the world and selling the TV rights, they have become in most ways, and yes, La Liga is great and Bundesliga is great, and you certainly can focus on those leagues and find things that are better than the Premier League. But for the most part, the Premier League is the world's league. It's sort of the melting pot league of the world, just happens to be there. And English football as a construct, as the FA or the Football League or whoever you want to throw into the mix, can't seem to get over the fact that means it's going to have perhaps a negative impact on the English player. You have anything else, Ati? No? Okay. We seem to have lost you. I'm not sure what happened to your microphone. There you go. Phone lines open 347-756-6276. Ryan on Twitter. Not as exciting. That means 4 of the top 6 scorers this year aren't eligible. Well, look, again, the proposal is 2 non-EU players. So I imagine if you're Liverpool and you have to make some decisions, Luis Suarez is one of the players you keep. One of them. So it would mean decisions on 4 of the top 6 scorers. Absolutely. Who's on the line with me now?
Hello?
Yes, who's this?
Hey, it's D from Tampa.
What's up?
A couple of days ago, I think you were talking with Jared, and you guys were talking about Wando versus Terrence Boyd.
Okay.
And you said that Wando, you said you thought Wando deserved to go to the World Cup more because he's been scoring more, and he plays more with the U.S. team. But if you look at it, Terrence only comes into camps, into the FIFA camps, and he didn't play because Josie's ahead of him. Wando played in the Gold Cup, which when he played, he only scored against, let's just call them guppies. And then when he played against the Big Boys, he couldn't score. And he scored against South Korea, but that was also like a C squad. And then he scored against maybe Mexico's B squad.
Okay. All right. Again, I mean, it's not about scoring. Obviously, if it was about scoring, Terrence Boyd is scoring tons of goals in Austria. So it's not just about scoring, but I don't know. I think there's something about Wondolowski's skill set that I like, and it doesn't mean that Terrence Boyd's not a good goal scorer or doesn't bring something to the table. It's just that Chris Wondolowski is a guy who has an innate sense of where to be and when to be there, and I think he's gotten more comfortable in the national setup. And yeah, you can argue about the competition, but all he's done is score against the teams put in front of him. He can't control that. So maybe you go ahead.
I agree. I'm just saying I don't think Terrence Boyd hasn't gotten the same amount of time playing. I mean, every time he comes in the game, it's always like trash time or finest left in the game. And I'm pretty sure if you put Terrence Boyd on the Gold Cup team, he's going to be scoring goals against those same teams.
No, it's fair enough. Appreciate the phone call, Dean from Tampa, giving the case for Terrence Boyd. 631, you're on the air.
Hey, Jason, it's Bill from Brooklyn. How you doing?
Hey, Bill from Brooklyn. What's going on, man?
Hey, I don't mean to super buzz market something, but I don't know if you've had a chance to see that new doc that came out about 2 weeks ago. Next Goal Wins about the American Samoan national team.
I haven't seen it, and I haven't had a chance to really look into it. I mean, I know what it's about. Obviously, it's about the American Samoan team. We were trying to get somebody involved in the movie to talk about it recently. I did have Thomas Rongen on this show last year to talk about his experience managing that team. So I'm aware of it, Bill, but I just haven't had a chance to really dive into it.
Yeah, I got a chance to see it last weekend in Manhattan, and it's absolutely fantastic. Actually, the directors of the film were there too, and it really is the story is incredible, and then all of the little side plots around it. The one defender who's the first transgendered player in the history of World Cup qualifying, and all the other things that went into it. Really is. I recommend it for everybody.
Absolutely, I go see it. Hopefully I get a chance to see it too. Next Goal Wins, the story of the American Samoan team. Obviously, Thomas Rongen, a man with deep American soccer connections, managing that team as they went about the business of not being the worst team in the world anymore. Appreciate the phone call, Bill. Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Someone's on the line with me. Not sure who it is. What's up?
Hey, it's Nathan. I think I'm calling on Skype.
Okay.
Correctly.
Yeah, it says unknown phone number, so you're mysterious, Nathan. Nathan wants to talk about the U.S. Open Cup, don't you?
I'm tuning in late anyway. Sorry. I usually try and get it, but I missed it if you did. I just think it's interesting. Cosmos' first entry, some cool matchups. You got Orlando. You got the I-4 Derby, right, going on as well in the third round. So should be an interesting little run of games. Third round. The one right before MLS.
The third round draw held yesterday. Is that correct? Yesterday?
Yeah. I think it took like 3 hours to get the result.
Yeah, so. I think I saw Peter Wilt tweeting some things. I'm not sure he was supposed to be doing that, but he wasn't. And this was something that was going on too. And Nathan, I don't know if you have any insight into why, but people were sort of railing about it. Why is this a secret draw, and why is it being? Why is there why is there an embargo on?
You need to ask. No, you need to ask somebody a little higher up in the hierarchy than me. I have no clue.
Yeah,
I think it. I don't think it's any
sinister. Nothing sinister.
I just think that it's they have so many pairings and geographical stuff to engineer, like the coin flips. Like you have to see which stadiums are eligible to host. Mm-hmm. They have to see in the territories, like which teams are close, et cetera, et cetera. There's quite a lot of manual pairing, I think, that goes on in this draw, as opposed to say the FA Cup, where it's straight picking up the little ping pong balls out of the whatever it is. I think it's a more engineered than that in a non-fixed way, obviously, just the way that the territories work in the US. It's kind of hard to do.
There are a lot more logistical considerations in doing a U.S. Open Cup draw than there ever are in an FA Cup draw, because the farthest any team in the FA Cup is going to travel is 4, 5, 6 hours at the most, I imagine. In this particular case, you really don't want to set up a lower division team on a limited budget to go fly across the country. That's certainly not something you want to do. I'm looking at go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I think where we are right now with the whole progression of the Open Cup and U.S. soccer in general, I think it's quite interesting because it gives people an incentive to tune into the early rounds. If you get the local rivalries going on, you've got the Cosmos' first. I'm a Cosmos fan, but you got the Brooklyn Italians, like Cosmos' first entry. Brooklyn Italians have won it twice in the past, like 79, I think, and 91. Like you've got a New York legendary team there. I think it's got a great pair up. So this early round kind of, I don't use the word engineering, but engineering of derbies is really interesting. And I think the fact that US Soccer are now featuring a game every round online is awesome too.
We do seem to be slowly building some momentum behind this tournament. Obviously it's difficult for it to feel like it matters, considering just the sort of underground nature of all of the things that happen. I mean, that on one level that makes it sort of more exciting, and because you have to be an initiate to even know the damn thing is happening. But on the other level, it is sort of frustrating. It's not the FA Cup because we just don't seem to care about it as much. Certainly when the MLS teams enter the tournament. Right now, as Nathan is talking about, third round draw yesterday. Looking at some of these matchups: Harrisburg City Islanders, Baltimore Bohemians. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Cosmos and the Brooklyn Italians, or the Jersey Express. The Brooklyn Italians have to win to make it into that matchup. Tampa Bay Rowdies at Orlando City, or it's Ocala Stampede. I'm not sure what that's all about. Tampa Bay Rowdies at Ocala Stampede. Is that Orlando City has to beat somebody to make it into that round, or
Orlando, I think, have a game they need to play before they get to the third round.
Okay,
I need to check those matchups. I haven't studied it, but I believe there's a few games that still need to happen.
You have the return of A.F.C to this tournament, and anybody who remembers a couple years ago, that was Eric Winalda's team. He put together with a bunch of guys who had sort of hit a wall with their professional careers. They went and shocked the Portland Timbers and made all of this noise in the tournament. And obviously, a bunch of those guys went on to revive their professional careers, including some at Atlanta, where Eric Winalda has a connection, is now the part-time manager. Although I think that this time around, Nick Webster is involved in that team, and I'm not sure who else is running Cal-FC. But
I think they just had a tryout actually a couple of days ago. They put out a call to arms for players to help them make another run in the Open Cup they wanted to see. So that'll be interesting. I know that San Diego Flash is it, and they were playing another team that they forfeited because they didn't have international player permits in time from US Soccer. So if Cal-FC are putting out tryouts, etc., for players to come and help them make a run in the Open Cup, I hope they have the permits all set and ready.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, the interesting thing about this tournament is it's such a unique mix of old and new. You obviously have a bunch of teams that aren't more than a couple years old. Icon FC in this tournament potentially at this point, if I'm reading this right. That's the team where Danny Satella kind of revived himself and ended up at the Cosmos. And then you get the teams that the ethnically based teams like the Brooklyn Italians, New York Greek American Atlas. I mean, and that's sort of going all the way back to when there wasn't high level professional soccer happening, and the best teams in the country were these very local, very neighborhood based, very ethnic teams.
You had Brooklyn Celtic in the first ever Open Cup in 1914. That was actually a Brooklyn derby in the first ever National Challenge Cup, as it was then, final. That was Brooklyn Field Club versus Brooklyn Celtic. So you've got these very localized territorial teams, quite often ethnic. I mean, like you say, you got Greek Americans. Mm-hmm. There was a Los Angeles Jewish team that did pretty well for a while. I've forgotten their name top of my head, but it's just the basis of U.S. soccer in general, isn't it? To be honest, it's a fascinating setup. One last thing before I'm going to let you go into the subject. I actually had this idea a little bit ago. There used to be a cup called the Lewis Cup in the U.S., which was just another cup competition similar to the Open Cup. And I think that trophy is actually now in a Croatian museum or something in Europe, which is really strange. But a lot of these teams that have been going for 50, 60 years in the U.S. are still going. They won the Lewis Cup back in the day. I thought it would be actually quite fascinating to see if there was some sort of support shield style crowd-sourced fan trophy thing that could happen where we bring that trophy back.
Interesting.
And it becomes a lower division trophy, like a FA vase or something, you know? It's like not open to MLS teams, just USL, PDL, and USASA, NPSL, etc.
How is there not a long form piece on SB Nation or something about this trophy? I need to know more. We need to work that out. That is fascinating. I'm a big history guy. I'd love to hear more about that, and certainly if we can put something together. All right, so let's work on that. We'll get Nathan. I'm sure you put it up on Reddit. It'll get a lot of attention pretty damn quickly. Yeah. We'll figure that out. Appreciate the phone call. It's good open cup discussion there with Nathan. All right. By the way, for your Open Cup factoids, information, draw, everything, the cup.us is where you go. There's no other place to go. I mean, other places will have the draw, other places will have schedules, but you go to the cup.us and you help support those guys because they're doing amazing work there. Sort of a very skeleton crew setup there. And they're keeping it going, and they've been doing it for years. And it is very tough to do that without some big support. And right now, they're just going on their own. All right, sorry that got a little distracted there. It is Friday. Phone lines are open 347-756-6276. Just to sort of go back to the proposed English changes. Obviously, all of this the goal is to win the World Cup. Because why else do you write a report except to go win a World Cup? Oh, by the way, Josh Hackle is the guy at the cup.us I wanted to recognize for his work. Anyway, the changes proposed by Greg Dyke and the FA would have a large impact on English football, but not just on English football. I mean, clearly from an American perspective, that would limit the number of Americans who could go and play in England. If the Premier League clubs are limited to two, and again, we don't think this is happening for real anytime soon, but let's imagine a world where it might. You are limited to 2 non-EU players for a Premier League side. That limits opportunity, makes it very, very difficult for Americans to get it. You have to be really, really good to get one of those spots. And if you are in one of the lower divisions, you're gone. You're leaving because they're not allowed to have any non-EU players per this proposal. And Zach says, what happens if you're non-EU and you get relegated? If you're non-EU and you're in the Premier League and your club goes down, your contract is voided. And I think that's probably pretty standard based on Premier League contract. I mean, you could write a Premier League contract that is not valid at a lower division. And then that player would leave because you're not allowed to have non-EU players. Yeah. If you want to keep this U.S. Open Cup discussion going, the matchups that you are most fascinated by, give us a call, 347-756-6276. We clearly have games to talk about this weekend. Clint Dempsey in Seattle, traveling to New England, Clint returning to the scene of his start there with the Revolution. Lots of nice quotes. That's what returning players have to do, right? This organization was really good to me, and they gave me my start, and I really appreciate everything they did, et cetera, et cetera. We also have Portland hosting LA. Fascinating game. Obviously, LA coming off of a bad performance against Colorado. Portland coming off of their first win of the season. Can the Timbers keep it going? Can LA find a little bit of a spark? Because they seem to be missing something. And if you haven't been paying attention, Omar Gonzalez is going to miss that game because Omar Gonzalez has a knee injury and is out for at least 1 to 2 weeks. That also impacts what he can do at the U.S. men's national team camp. So how does Jurgen Klinsmann sort of process what Omar Gonzalez can bring to the table at the World Cup with a couple of weeks missing? He won't be in competition. There is enough of a concern over Omar Gonzalez among the national team fan base that people are wondering if he should be the starter anymore. Does Jeff Cameron step up in your depth chart based on Omar Gonzalez's injury, or if you want to just say based on his play? He hasn't been good enough. We're concerned he might switch off. What's the point of having him as a starter if he's going to be a danger back there? Someone's on the line with me. Who's this?
Hey, it's Raph. How you doing?
What's up, Raph?
Not much. Just a few things. If you're talking about the Lewis Cup thing, I think Nathan I'm not sure if Nathan mentioned the most interesting thing about it. It's that it's actually residing in the Museum of Sports Glory in Ukraine.
Okay, I think he said Croatia. He might have had the country wrong, but he definitely mentioned that it. He mentioned that it was not here; that it was at a museum somewhere in Europe. Yes.
Yeah, no, but I think it's a good idea, and who knows? I might write something up about it.
Okay, that'd be good.
That being said, did you hear this crazy rumor that Alessandro Del Piero is supposedly going to the LA Galaxy?
Yes, I did. I did hear that. Yeah, as a matter of fact.
What do you think about it?
I think that he better not be a DP. That's what I think.
Okay. All right. For a second, I was feeling whether I was a little bit crazy because I had the exact same thought. I saw him play in the A-League last season and a little bit the season before that, and it clearly looked as though he's lost a step. And I love Del Piero.
I'm sure. It's impossible not to. You cannot stop the march of time. It happens. You can be the best. You can be the best at something for athletically for years, but eventually, time is going to rob you of your talent. And I mean, I'm not saying that Alessandro Del Piero can't be effective in MLS, but I don't think he's worth it. I don't think he's worth DP money anymore. I mean, his name is in certain circles, but his talent is not. And because he's not Beckham or Henry, or because he's not on that level, and because of his age, as you sort of balance these things out. Right. And LA doesn't have an open DP slot anyway. So if it's LA, it can't be a DP. Right.
And then the last thing, Dempsey going back to New England. Do you think he celebrates or he doesn't celebrate?
Our friend James on Twitter, he just said, should Dempsey celebrate when he scores on New England? Dempsey should celebrate if Dempsey wants to celebrate. I don't care what he does because that is his decision. It's not going to offend me. If New England Revolution fans want to be offended by Clint Dempsey scoring against them, I think they're misplacing their emotional energy. But hey, whatever. I don't think that it would be. I would not be annoyed by it or angered by it or upset by it. That's all.
Right.
Yes, they're good. I don't know what he would do. In fact, I bet you he doesn't celebrate. I bet you if he scores, I bet you he doesn't celebrate. And now we got Kenny Cooper sort of making this a habit now. Kenny Cooper not celebrating against the Timbers, not celebrating against FC Dallas. And I know that they play the Red Bulls in August or something. If he scores against the Red Bulls, he probably won't celebrate there either.
Oh, I mean, that gives you an idea of how traveled Kenny Cooper is.
Well,
anyway,
yeah, and that's just since he came back from that English stint he did. Those are those he's played for FC Portland, New York, FC Dallas, and Seattle since he came back. Just kind of nuts. All right, Ralph. Appreciate the phone call. Anything else?
Have a good weekend.
No,
that's it.
All right, you have a good one as well. There goes Ralph. I'm going to take a quick break, just kind of reset things. We'll come back. We'll open up the phone lines. We'll keep it going. A little pickup soccer. I'm going to ask you guys: should Soccer Morning have a slogan? Should we have what do we need a slogan, right? Let's work on that. Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV, soccermorning.com. Be right back.
I turn my camera on. I cut my fingers on the way. The way I'm slipping away. I turn my
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
Back on Soccer Morning, the slogans are flying in fast and furious. Hit us up on Twitter at Soccer Morning. I've got JT Delaney, wake up with a beautiful game, which I'm sorry, JT, it's a fine slogan. It's a fine, you put that on a coffee mug, which, by the way, we need coffee mugs. We absolutely have to produce a coffee mug. And I think we're working on T-shirts, by the way. I think we're working, maybe early stages. Do not get excited yet, but I think we may be working on T-shirts. But JT's suggestion is wake up with a beautiful game. And that just has to be said. Wake up with a beautiful game, everybody. Good Soccer Morning. Welcome. Nathan, who we just talked to, I take my soccer like I take my coffee in the morning. Bill, punny Bill, all the news that's fit to kick. All right. All right. That's all of these things. I don't know. Do we need something that looks good on a T-shirt? And actually, again, we may be working on a T-shirt, but if we had to come up with something right now to slap on a T-shirt to sell for Soccer Morning, not sell, give away, whatever. Just if we had to have a T-shirt for Soccer Morning, I know there's like a very select handful of people who have the original edition Teespring Soccer Morning T-shirt, and I've seen some very cool pictures of people like at stadiums and stuff wearing it. That stuff's great, by the way. But if we had to create a T-shirt now that wasn't just the word Soccer Morning, what would it say? I actually think, oh, hey, Jason, would be a nice thing to put on a T-shirt. I really do. My boy Vince in Toronto. It's a little shout out to you got to be inside. Little inside joke. Oh, hey, Jason. There you go. Joseph talking about Failhaber scoring against New England last season, and the New York broadcast team sounded like they just witnessed someone kicking a puppy. Yeah, Rick in Philly, sack hack. He wants me to pick up the cause of getting John Hackworth fired in Philadelphia. Sorry, Rick, I can't do that. Can't do that. All right. So I'm going to leave open the question that we just talked about, the last segment, 347-756-6276. Is a less foreign, more English Premier League less exciting for you? And here I got a couple of responses. Again, the idea of limiting the talent that's obviously not usually something you want to do. Usually, you want to make the league better. And I think just to bring it back, and yeah, I'm going to be selfish and myopic and take it to an American topic here because I'm American. I care about American soccer. We debate this all the time with MLS. We debate does MLS have a mandate to help the national team? Does it have a mandate to produce American players? And I will say no. I don't think MLS clubs are. I think part of their reason for being is to help the national team. Now, they should be producing American players or local players, whether they're American by citizenship or green card or whatever. Doesn't matter because they want to create the best. They want to produce the best players for their own purposes so they can go win games or sell those players on to bring in money. And if those players happen to end up as American internationals and help win games for the national team, then so be it. It's a byproduct. It's not a direct reason. So when you have the FA sort of mucking about in the notion of what exactly is the Premier League, what exactly is the Football League, what are we doing here? Let's put a B team league down at the bottom of the professional pyramid. Again, it sort of gets into this area of whether or not your national league is supposed to be in the business of supporting your international aspirations. Is this when it comes to MLS, and I know U.S. soccer and MLS closely tied together. All of these things are sort of working in concert. Certainly when MLS started, giving Americans a place to play was a major positive in the column of the league. But it's not now, nearly 20 years on. It's not exactly what MLS clubs should be worried about. And that's why I don't think, in Mexico, they went so far as to mandate that young Mexican players be required to play a certain number of minutes. They eventually took it away. Maybe it served its purpose. Everybody who pays attention to Mexican soccer tells me that rule is no longer needed because the clubs have taken it upon themselves. I guess you want American clubs to do that. But again, it's not that I don't want MLS to help the national team. I do. I would love for MLS to be the place where American players grow and thrive and become superstars and help the United States win a World Cup. I want that to happen. I just don't believe that MLS clubs should be required to have it in their thinking, we're producing players for the national team. Again, it's a sort of parallel paths that crossed over. SoCal Sooner 17. It's called soccer. It's a little derivative. Nick in Toledo. Soccer morning, we celebrate every goal we score. We celebrate soccer morning. We celebrate against our former clubs. Julian Brown, because who needs coffee? Okay, I'm not sure that one works too well. Okay. Your passion starts here from the real Zero Cool. Who wants me to talk about New England and Sporting? Okay, sure. I can talk about that game. Oh, New England, Seattle. Sorry, did I say Sporting? That's the midweek game next week. Seattle and New England, right? New England kind of getting things together. Seattle, obviously the best team in the league right now, or at least the best team out west, without any doubt whatsoever. You have this thing happening now, and the U.S. internationals are getting ready to leave. Clint Dempsey's gone after this match for Seattle, probably Brad Evans as well. As far as I know, no American players leaving New England. They have players called up, or at least one, Jerry Bankston. Anybody else from New England called up by their national teams for the World Cup? Just Jerry Bankston, right? So that should that's actually unfortunate timing for New England. Wouldn't you rather play Seattle without Clint Dempsey? Yeah, maybe you want to welcome him back. Maybe you want to welcome him back to New England, give him a nice little round of applause, and say, "Hey, Clint, remember when your hair was terrible when you played here a long time ago?" Mitch, you're mean. Soccer morning, better than static. Okay, jeez. All right. JT brings up JT on Twitter brings up Eddie Johnson and his recent comments in which he sort of took a backhanded, subtle dig, I guess. Subtle? I don't know. Maybe not so subtle at his teammates. No, not subtle. He took a dig at his teammates. Now, was he being honest? And let me find these comments actually, because I think it's important to give the context. Do you have? I need to get the link. I don't have it ready to go. I do have his apology, which apparently he made in the locker room to his teammates in the aftermath of this. And my boys, Pablo Maurer, Thomas Floyd were the ones that were there, I guess, when EJ said this and put this out on Twitter, and it kind of blew up into a thing. Essentially what Eddie Johnson said is my teammates aren't as good here. I'm having to do more work, and it's not as easy. It's essentially what he said. I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the actual quote in front of me. I apologize for that. But that's what he... Okay, here we go. Let me pull this up. We'll get his actual comments. If you haven't heard this, it has been difficult. I've been asked to play a different style of soccer than I've been playing the last 2 years in Seattle. Obviously, I feel like we're more of a pressing, hard-working team, and we can press the ball high up the field and win balls, be good in that area, and breaking our attacking half. Whereas in Seattle... and no respect to the guys that are here, and that is a warning bell, right? That's a big warning. That's an alarm. Alarms are going off when you say that, Eddie. I felt like I didn't have to run as much because we had better guys that had more quality in the ball. I feel like the styles are completely different. Okay, look. Again, there's nothing untruthful about what Eddie Johnson said there. And I normally wouldn't have a problem with this. The reason it's an issue is because Eddie's got a reputation. It's probably not fair in all cases, but Eddie's got himself a reputation. He basically pushed his way out of Seattle because of money, ends up in D.C., gets his big paycheck, and now he's sort of saying, yeah, these guys suck. Now, again, it's not flat out that way. He's not saying that directly, these guys suck. When you say we had more quality in the ball in Seattle and I had to work hard. I have to work harder now, and et cetera, et cetera. It's not. I'm not worried about my perception of Eddie's words. I'm worried about what the team thinks. I think so. Maybe I should reserve judgment. If the team cares, then it's a problem. If the team doesn't care, who cares what Eddie said? Who cares what he said if his teammates do not care? And again, you can question the wisdom of saying this publicly. And the best The best part of this is that Thomas and Pablo said on Twitter it was in response to a question about his injury. That at no point was the question, what's the difference between DC and Seattle? What's the difference between United and the Sounders? That wasn't the question. The question was something about coming back from injury, and his response. So this must have been weighing on Eddie's mind. Again, I don't think, again, question the wisdom of it. Maybe not the smartest thing to say publicly. But it doesn't really matter if his teammates don't care. Now, here's his response, or here's his apologies to his team in the aftermath. This is at Washington Post, Stephen Goff. It was very important for me to take the guys aside this morning and tell them, look, the words were misperceived. I wasn't trying to go at my teammates. It was more about adapting to this new style that I have to get used to. That is what has been challenging. I wanted to give them peace of mind. I don't want them to think I am better than them. That's always been the perception of my career. I'm a prima donna. I'm a bad teammate. I'm bad in the locker room. That's not the case. Again, it doesn't matter as long as his teammates are okay. And apparently, depending on what you believe, Jeff Park's saying, oh, no, it's okay. It's good. Here's Jeff Park. If he had come out and said, these guys suck, I can't play with them, I don't know why I'm here, that's a different situation. That is not what was said. I don't mind it. He owns up to whatever was said and clears the air. We trust in him and believe in him, which is Jeff Park being a good leader. 774.
Hey, Jason, Alex.
Hey, Alex, what's up?
How are you? Do you think Klinsmann takes into account something like that, or possible past transgressions or what have you? I mean, do you think that he looks at that, and I mean, could it possibly be, if it gets down to Wando and him, and he just says, you know what, let's go with Wando. And I know they're different players; they bring different things to the table. But is that something that he considers?
The reports that I've heard and the anecdotes that I've heard is that Eddie Johnson is not a problem in any way, shape, or form with the national team. That has been everything I've ever heard about him with in this latest stint. I mean, obviously he sort of had a return to international soccer after his success in Seattle. Everything I've heard is that Eddie Johnson is great with the national team. If that's the case, then Klinsmann should not care about this whatsoever, because this doesn't matter. This is a different team with a different dynamic, and obviously Eddie's being asked to carry the load for a team that does play different stuff. Again, it's not. Eddie says things that are truthful, while at the same time perhaps going over a line that he doesn't need to. I mean, it's just sort of needless and careless to say that, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And speaking of the national team, I guess you probably saw this morning, DeMarcus Beasley is possibly coming back to, or wants to come back to MLS. I would assume he'd have to go through the allocation process, obviously, right?
Yes.
So,
how did DeMarcus leave? Because I don't remember how he left.
I think he's still under contract. I think he's training in Florida right now. Or was training
right.
In
well,
Florida.
I mean, how did he leave MLS? Because that'll dictate whatever his.
Right. Who has his rights? Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure if anybody has his rights. If he has to go through allocation, right. I'm not sure about that.
I'm sure there's a few teams that could probably utilize somebody like him.
And I'd be interested to know. I imagine he'd be playing as a midfielder in MLS. So yeah, right. I mean, I guess that answers the question. I mean, no one's going to put DeMarcus Beasley at left back in MLS. Clearly,
right.
It'd be interesting to see him back in the league. I'd be happy to see that. Absolutely.
And I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but the whole FA thing is in England is, I mean, that's great that they want to. It's never going to happen. I mean, there's no way. There's no way those owners allow it. The league allows it.
This is. I tend to agree with you. Greg Dyke says he already has the support of a couple of big clubs, and I think City and Liverpool are on that list. I'll have to check on that. I know Liverpool's on the list, as Greg Dyke saying they're supporting the proposals.
But don't you think that's a PR move?
Maybe, but if you're an English team of any size, why do you even bother saying anything? Why don't you just sort of let it play out and do all of your politicking and behind closed doors and sort of say, look, we either hate this or we're cool with this, and not make it because again, I mean, it'll limit what they're able to do. It'll certainly affect English clubs in Europe.
Yeah, but I don't think I know what you're saying. Maybe just don't say anything. But by the same token, you come out and say, yeah, this is not a bad idea. It kind of, not that they need to be put in the good graces with the FA and football fans in England, but it's something that it's good PR basically. And it's somebody like, and as we know around here, John Henry, he considers that greatly. So.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that this certainly smacks of overcorrection. I mean, this is the pendulum has swung too far in their minds, and they're going to go and just throw it back the other way, and it could end in it either could end in disaster, or it's an overcorrection. If at any point, and there's no reason for this right now, and I think it's fascinating in sort of the context of expansion and the talent pool available, which I don't think MLS will have a problem with it. But if at any point MLS or U.S. Soccer said we're going to mandate how many non-Americans can play on our professional teams, I don't know. I just don't think that would be. We wouldn't be happy with that, even if it meant more American players get time, right?
Right. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, it's like I said, it's something that I understand why they want to do it, but the way the world is now, it's a global game. People want to see, especially in that league, they want to see the best players, irrespective of where they come from. So I think it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I appreciate the phone call, Alex. Thanks a lot, man.
And just one last thing, Jason. Clint can celebrate if he scores, but he won't. So
no, he won't. I know he won't. I think it's a non-issue because he's not going to do. If he scores, he's gonna.
No, but I don't think he will score. So,
okay.
All right. I think it's a Revs win.
All right. Thanks for the phone call, Alex. There, some confidence there from a Revs fan, talking about Seattle's visit to New England. Interesting stuff there. By the way, DeMarcus Beasley sold by Chicago. I just should have remembered that. Of course he was. Transferred to PSV. So that would probably mean that Chicago doesn't have his rights and he'll be going through the allocation order in order to come back to MLS. And I don't recall who's at the top of the order because I just don't. That's not something I hold in my head. Somebody tell me who's at the top of the allocation order right now, and we'll determine whether or not that's the team that's going to pick up DeMarcus Beasley. How much do you have to pay DeMarcus Beasley? $350, something like that. Does that sound right to you? To get DeMarcus Beasley back into MLS? Possible. Down the stretch of the program, 347-756-6276. Down the stretch of the week, headed into Championship Sunday. Sunday. Looking at this schedule, and I read a really terrible piece this morning on NBC. The headline was amazing. It was something like NBC's gamble in the Premier League still a scoreless draw. Clever, except it's not. NBC's doing fine with the Premier League, more than fine. I think they're ecstatic with where they've gone with this. Doubled the ratings from previous rights holders. And they're going to blow it out on Sunday with Championship Sunday. NBC, NBCSN, USA, CNBC, MSNBC, Bravo, Sci-Fi, Esquire, E, Oxygen, Telemundo, Mundos. Oh, those are obviously Spanish. It is interesting to see soccer listed on Bravo and Esquire and Sci-Fi. A little humor there. People making fun of Manchester United because they ended up on Sci-Fi. People who are going to be flipping around on a Sunday morning like, I need something to watch. Let me flip by Esquire. Sunderland and Swansea City. What the heck is this? Who watches Esquire? I don't know what does Esquire do? I don't know what Esquire does. Is it like Spike? Is it like FX? No? FX isn't really much of anything, really. A couple of good shows, and that's it. How excited are you for Sundays? Because remember a couple of years ago when Manchester City won the title, that Sunday was amazing. That's certainly at the top. Now, obviously, you're also watching these games for the relegation implications. But we pretty much know who's going down. Norwich, Fulham, and Cardiff. I mean, Fulham and Cardiff are done. They They are going down. They are not coming back up, and they're not staying. They cannot stay. Absolutely not going to happen. West Brom has Stoke, and I suppose if Norwich is well behind on goal differential, correct? I got too many tabs open. This is what happens when you open like 6 tabs. Oh yeah, there's 17 goals back. So Norwich is going to have to win against Arsenal, right? They have Arsenal by 17 goals and hope West Brom loses. Or 16, yeah. Because that's not going to happen. So Norwich is done. So you have no intrigue at the bottom. And the intrigue at the top has sort of been muted by the fact that Liverpool couldn't hang on to a win at Crystal Palace. So now, what are you looking for? What are you watching for? Your top 4 are set. All City needs to do is get a point, and they're champions. All right. A couple more slogans coming in. Bill mocked up a coffee mug. Thanks, Bill. It's a soccer ball, a Telstar, a Bucky ball, of course, because how do people know it's soccer if it's not the black and white panel Telstar? How would people know it's soccer? Soccer morning with a sun, like that's nice, Bill. Thanks a lot. For the fans, by the fans, of the fans. It's a little long. Bringing the sexy back. Not sure how that works. Steak sandwich. All right. Kick hard. Kick harder. Like kind of like a Die Hard thing. Maybe we can pull that. Maybe we can swing that around. This is what I want too. This is what I would love. And yeah, this would be about my ego. And let's be honest. Of course, I have one. I would love to see a soccer morning banner, sign, something at some MLS game somewhere. Just a small one, little piece of poster board. I don't know what he can say. That just writing soccer morning on a poster board, that's kind of boring, right? Not really exciting. And if you write, "Oh, hey, Jason" on it, then basically that's a wrestling sign and nothing related to soccer necessarily. I feel bad. Am I making fun of Vince? How should Vince feel about this? I love the smell of soccer in the morning. That's legit. I like that, Cat. A little Apocalypse Now reference? Or is that Apocalypse Now? Or am I getting my Vietnam War movies wrong? Okay. I think that might be Full Metal Jacket. I think I'm getting my Vietnam movies wrong. Somebody's going to call me out on that. All right. Toronto's number 1 in allocation. Okay. I'm not sure it's Marcus Beasley ending up back there. Last couple minutes of the week. 347-756-6276 is your phone number. Let me review my news stories. Review what's happening around the world of football, soccer, MLS TV talks. We covered this with Jonathan Tannewald this week. Delay. Not sure why it's taking so long. Awful announcing about Yoda reporting yesterday that we could have an announcement as early as Monday on the MLS TV deal, and that it's ESPN and Fox. You're going to get ESPN. You're going to get Fox. Prepare yourself. Brace yourself. Get yourself ready. But do this. Do not assume that Fox is going to screw it up. And if you are honestly worried about Fox and the way they're going to produce MLS, give them some feedback. Write them a polite email. Address it to soccerguys@foxsoccer. Whatever. I don't know who you send it to. But let's do this in a way that's not going to be combative. If we are worried about Fox, I'm going to give Fox all the benefit of the doubt. I want to believe that they're going to do it right. Now, if Gus Johnson ends up calling MLS games, that'll be the world ending and it'll be hilarious, and we can talk about that. But give them the benefit of the doubt, at least for now, because again, if you care about the growth of MLS, if you care about MLS having more money to buy more players, to bring in more players, to spend on academies, etc., all of these things, then we're going to have to MLS is going to have to take the biggest deal. It's a bad precedent to not take the biggest deal. And if NBC's not at the table anymore, it doesn't matter. Fox is the one stepping up, saying, here's some millions of dollars. What is MLS supposed to do? Knock on NBC's door, throw a rock at NBC's sport window? Hold up the boombox? Please Please take us back. No, can't do that. Fox wants MLS, then you go to Fox and you give Fox a chance. And I'm sure MLS is going to be directly involved in helping Fox get their production together. Fox knows how to do sports. They do. They do. And they've got Fox Sports 1. This is already a step up from Fox Soccer Channel. Already moving in the right direction just there. So let's just hold our breath and wait and see what happens. Did I mention that Sepp Blatter is going to run for president again? You're not surprised by that. You're not surprised. Eric says, why shouldn't I assume Fox is going to screw it up? Don't they need to prove themselves first? Okay, fine. You want to be that guy. You want to have the negative spin on it, Eric? Be my guest. You're just putting stress on yourself that you don't need in your life, basically. But again, I suppose what we're talking about is an accounting of positives and negatives. And for me, if the money is a significant increase over the last TV deal and that helps MLS grow and get better, then that's a positive where you can look past Fox and their issues. Duffy on Twitter, Sounders Duff. Make your morning a soccer morning. All right. I like that one. I think that's a good way to go out. Make your morning a soccer morning. All right. This has been fun. A little bit more of a free roll on a Friday. Thanks to everybody that called in. Thanks to Christian Hernandez for his insight on Sunderland and Josie Altidore and England changing everything. We'll be back on Monday. We'll have games to talk about. We'll have an English champion to talk about. We'll have relegation to talk about. We'll have, not Monday, Tuesday. We'll have an MLS 30-man roster to talk about. It's all coming up. I'm excited. All right, guys. SoccerMorning.com to support the show. Spread the word. Put it on Facebook. Write that on a sign. Write SoccerMorning.com on a sign. And just, yeah. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. Later.